Merry Christmas. Merry Chrysler, everybody. How did I spend my Christmas? Well, I certainly didn't spend it being Mr. Popular. I'll tell you that much. I was never somebody who really liked big parties. You know what I mean? I was never someone who enjoyed a billion people over at my house. I don't really know my extended family that well. And by extended family, I mean my family friends who I am not tied to biologically. I don't like being in my head too much, but I like being in my head a little bit. I like to be more in the background, kind of absorbing whatever's happening, than to be thrust into something I don't really want to be in. The last kind of big thing I went to was the memorial for my old gym owner, Bob, who passed away, unfortunately, and that was very sad. I cried the whole time with a bunch of strangers who I don't really know that well, and I stopped being as sad when I thought about how he died. He died he was gonna bicycle across a good portion of the country. I think he was gonna bicycle from like California to Connecticut. He got hit by a car, and the way he died doing something that he liked. I do not know if he died in pain or if he was in a bunch of agony. I hope that he died peacefully. Well, you can only die so peacefully when you get hit by a car in the road from your bike, right? But it did have me think. I think it's an act of mercy when God takes someone's life while they're in occupation of whatever they're doing, as opposed to God not supporting what you're doing at all. And I mean, sometimes it has to be done. Sometimes leaders have to be killed when they're in power because they're literally so evil. But a lot of the time, the way God inflicts his judgment is by letting something decay, letting something rot, right? When we read the book of Jeremiah, Lamentations, the curse that was put on the kingdom of Judah, where they would starve slowly from a famine and continually get raped and pillaged, was a far worse punishment than that of Sodom and Gomorrah. And it's partially because Sodom and Gomorrah was just a completely evil city and people were mindless, but the people in Judah knew better. They turned their backs on God, and so they slowly suffered and decayed. But I think about also the unnamed prophet in 1 Kings. I think about this story a lot when I think about people who die prematurely in spontaneous ways when they're in the process of doing something, right? The unnamed prophet in Kings who preaches against Jeroboam and resists his temptations, but later ignores God and gets deceived by a false prophet. God killed this unnamed prophet to save him from further corruption. And I think about that with a lot of popular people even. Take a little peep. Whether you love him or you hate him, whether you think his music is garbage or if you're the biggest fanboy of him in the whole wide world, and parse through what I'm saying, this may seem extremely insensitive and horrible to a lot of people, but I think it has to be said anyway, is God probably allowed Lil Peep to die in the moment he did to save him from further debauchery, and also to have all the stuff around him cease as well. All those people who were junkies. It was a tough decision for sure, but it's something that basically had to be done. Because think about it. Think about if he never died there. Think about what he would become. Look at what he plastered himself with. You know what I mean? He was making very poor after poor after poor decision, and he could have been completely zombified had he kept going the way he did. And look at the way he died. He died young. He is immortalized now in people's minds as a young man who was coming up and was about to be a star, and then he passed right before his full stardom. He died right at the cusp of basically entering the music industry. And I think that that's really the best thing that could have happened to him, because you look at his early music, it's definitely good as he's getting bigger and better. There's still, even though it's extremely poppy and there's a bunch of potential to just be very bad, it still has a kind of rawness to it, at least, that is authentic and sincere. And then he died, and with his corpse being puppeteered by different people, you have 21 Pilots. You have 21 Pilots, Fall Out Boy, Ariana Grande remixes, basically, of his songs, and ungodly features and collaborations trying to milk his corpse. But that's all they can do. All they can do is milk what's left from his from the stuff that he never finished from before. They can only scrounge the scraps, so it's not that bad. You know what I mean? Imagine if he didn't die, and imagine what he would have been doing later. He would have been like Sam Smith, and he would have been, dressed in very self-denigrating ways, and his soul would have been further tortured, tormented, and he would have been in even more agony. Probably, I think what they do to celebrities is they, when you reach a certain level of fame and you just have all this anxiety from millions of people watching you, they just really start drugging you up and making you do choreography, hypnosis, MK Ultra, where they download a celebrity personality to your brain, so they can hit a button and make you do a public spaz out. There's a billion cameras in front of you. He was spared from that type of psychological torture, and I think that that's really the best thing that could have happened to him. Although he died anyway, that was the most beneficial thing for their salvation, in a sense, right? But it's not always a negative thing, right? It's not always like God stopping you from becoming something worse that you don't want to become, right? Because I think he more so really punishes the people who do know better. I think there's just other times where God lets people die prematurely, not for a negative reason, because they finished up their business. They could finish off life doing something that they love before they're taken. from such a cruel world full of sadistic, awful people. There's people who are beautiful, awesome, selfless individuals who just they're so pure, they're so amazing, they're so lovely, and God let them help all the people they needed to help, and then He takes them to heaven, and it's such a heartbreaking thing for us. And I think Bob, my gym manager, gym owner, he was really like that. I can't ever listen to Eye of the Tiger again without thinking of him. The Rocky song and his little spin class. I only did the spin class literally because I liked him. I cried a lot at his memorial, but to be honest, I'm not really sad. Not because I don't care about him or I don't, empathize with his family or anything, but I genuinely think that it was just time for him to go, He was a bright, very bright person. He was extremely healthy for his age. I think he's in his late 50s or 60s maybe. Incredibly healthy. Just so full of life. He greeted everybody. He had a good sense of humor. And he made people's lives better. He worked people into shape. And then he died. And he died doing his little biking thing. And that just doesn't make me sad, because I think he walked on a good path. He was called to help people and to motivate people and to make them better. And after he got all of his business out of the way and he left to do his own journey, he reached a point where it looked like a lot for him to do, and the journey was taking slower for him than he would have thought. And then the thing happened, and that's how he went out. I don't think it was a negative thing. I think it was genuinely, it was a good thing almost. It was a good thing that happened. It was a good thing that he was taken in the way that he was. It was a good thing that he was removed from all this grief and all this strife. He was just a bright star, and then he finished his business and he was taken. Now, after he died is a different story. His daughter, without gossiping, his daughter fought a bunch of people to take over the gym, sell his stuff, fire everybody. I think it's under different management now, and they're gonna change the name. But there's all these demonic forces, all these vultures, trying to attack everything that he owned and everything that he loved afterward. And there were probably, I imagine, a couple people in his life who had resentment towards him for whatever reason and were opportunistic, who saw this death as an opportunity. But God will not give them anything stable. He will not give them everlasting peace if they do stuff like that. And so he really just won in the end. He got a bunch of people into shape. He probably saved some people's lives, honestly, just with the type of work he was doing. And then he was taken. And so he finished his business and he was spared so much. And that's admirable. Whoa. Data. I think that's really admirable. And I don't think I'll go out like that. I don't know. I don't know what God's plans are with me entirely, but I think that that's an honorable way to go. So I'm not heartbroken. I do feel somewhat of an emptiness that is sad. I feel nostalgia. I do wish that I had more conversations with him. But this is why I hope I'll be resurrected. There's a really heartbreaking, tragic video. It's very bittersweet, and I bawl my eyes out every time I watch it. And I'll put it in the description box below. I don't think I'm gonna talk about it too much, other than I'll link it. If I do have thoughts about it, I'll talk about it in a separate video. But it's related to this. But God is He's sovereign in our lives, right? He decides when we die. You know, some people, He lets them finish their business and He takes them. Other people He cares about, and they are going to mess up their business really bad and turn, and they don't want that to happen. So God steps in their life and takes them. Other times people are wicked, and so He torments them for the sake of their soul by prolonging their life, and allowing the demons to attack them, to draw out a good from them. Other people are just so wicked that He leaves them to their own devices to destroy themselves. And other people are so wicked and so irrational and so animalistic that He eviscerates them entirely. And some people, they just live full lives. Whatever it is, God is sovereign over everything. And our choices also certainly matter too. We should be ready to die whenever. And admittedly, I'm not ready. I used to be extremely uncaring about death, but now I discovered that there are things that I do need to attend to. There are things that I am worried about. There are things that I need to finish and reconcile before I can be comfortable passing. And I pray that God will keep me alive. God willing, I live another day, right? You really never know when you're going to go out. And it's important to think about that, honestly, every day. But if you can't do that, it's important to think about it every once in a while. You know what I mean? But I don't know why I'm thinking about it this Christmas. Well, I think I know why, and it's complicated. But all I can say is I'm thankful, even with all the mistakes that I've made before. Even with the wicked ways that I lived in before, I'm thankful that God has kept me alive even after that He still saw that I was useful for something, and God willing, He will continue to let me go on the course that I'm on now, and He'll protect me from deviating that path. And this is, I think, something that we should all pray for. God is also sovereign over the times that we're born in. And maybe that's something to think about as everybody is ruminating over the nativity, is not only when we are going to die, but also when God has willed us to be born into this world. it's a big discussion these days of why does God seemingly punish me or my generation for the sins of our fathers. And I mean, according to Ezekiel, that's not true. God doesn't do that. But there is obviously some sort of pattern of you know, a very wicked generation being very evil and not much happening to them, and then their children being born and being destitute. I don't think it's that God is doing like a generational punishment in that way, in that specific way. Certainly not. I think it's really to save us from being like our fathers, right? Like in the book of Numbers, he lets the Israelites wander the desert aimlessly for 40 years, and then they die off, and then he sees what their children want to do. You know, I think God is extremely considerate, and there's a reason we're born in this time now. God chose to incarnate himself during a very specific time of persecution and hardship. There's a reason for that. So I think the main thing that I'm saying for this video is we should think about how God is sovereign over the time that we die, and He's sovereign over the time that we're born in, that we're going to grow up in the environment that's going to affect us. He's sovereign over that too. And I think that this is something that should bring us comfort. It certainly brought me more comfort than gambling with random chance.